In the unforgiving wilds of 12th century Mongolia, an outcast boy emerges to unite warring tribes and carve an empire in blood. His name would echo through the ages, feared and revered. His name is Genghis Khan, and this is his villainy. Hello and welcome to Fireside Villainies, where we delve into the dark shadows of history and explore the chilling tales of history's most infamous figures. My name's Michael, and I will be your guide in this episode where we venture into the brutal expanse of the Mongol steppe. Here, among rival tribes and endless conflict, one man rose to become the most feared and ruthless leader the world has ever known. Genghis Khan. The name still sends shivers down the spine. But who was he before he became the scourge of nations? Join me as we explore his calculated rise to power, the loyalty he commanded, and the devastating shadow he cast across the world. Don't forget to subscribe and follow Fireside Villainies for more chilling tales from history, and stick around to the end when I share some reflections on each episode. Now let's gather around the fire and begin this tale, starting with the world that shaped Genghis Khan's rise, an unforgiving land of violence, betrayal, and ambition. In the vast and unforgiving expanse of the 12th century Mongol terrain, a world of nomadic tribes clashed in an endless struggle for survival. The harsh climate, scarce resources, and constant threat of raids from rival clans fostered a culture steeped in violence and fierce competition. Loyalty was fleeting, alliances were fragile, and betrayal was commonplace. Amidst this cauldron of chaos and conflict, a young boy named Temujin was born in 1162. His destiny was intertwined with the turbulent times, and his rise to power would be marked by a trail of blood and terror. The Mongol steppe was a land where strength and cunning were paramount. Tribal leaders ruled with an iron fist, their authority maintained through fear and intimidation. Raids and skirmishes were a way of life, with warriors honing their skills in the saddle and mastering the art of archery from a young age. Blood feuds raged for generations, fueled by vengeance and a desire for dominance. It was a world where mercy was a weakness and compassion was a luxury few could afford. Temujin's early life was a testament to the harsh realities of the steppe. His father, a minor chieftain, was poisoned by a rival clan, leaving the young boy and his family to fend for themselves. Cast out and ostracized, Temujin experienced firsthand the cruelty and treachery that permeated Mongol society. But amidst the hardship and adversity, a spark of ambition ignited within him. He vowed to rise above his circumstances, to unite the warring tribes, and to avenge his father's death. The stage was set for a saga of epic proportions. Temujin's journey from a despised outcast to the legendary Genghis Khan would be a tale of ambition, brutality, and unwavering determination. The Mongol grasslands, once a vast battleground for countless feuding clans, would become the crucible in which a ruthless conqueror was forged. And as the young Temujin embarked on his path to power, the world would tremble before the rising tide of Mongol fury. Chapter 1: The Making of a Survivor. The boundless Mongolian steppe stretched out under a sky the color of bruised steel. Winds howled, carrying whispers of ancient battles and the haunting cries of wolves. Amidst this unforgiving landscape, in the year 1162, a child named Temujin was born. His birth, like the land itself, was marked by both beauty and brutality. Temujin's father, Yesugei, was a chieftain of minor renown, his clan a speck in the tapestry of warring tribes that dotted the steppe. Yet, even in this humble beginning, Temujin's destiny was being shaped. Yasuge, a seasoned warrior and a shrewd leader, held onto the hope that his young son would one day bring greatness to their clan. He took Temujin under his wing, teaching him the arts of war, the intricacies of tribal politics, and the importance of unwavering loyalty. One day, as they rode across the vast plains, Yasuge pointed to a lone wolf stalking its prey. "See that wolf, Temujin," he said, his voice gruff but filled with wisdom. "It is cunning, patient, and relentless in its pursuit. A true leader must embody these qualities, for the steppe shows no mercy, and only the strong survive." Temujin, his young eyes fixed on the wolf, absorbed his father's words. He saw in the predator the fire of ambition, a hunger for power, and a determination to overcome any obstacle. His mother, Hoelun, a woman whose spirit burned as brightly as any campfire on the windswept plains, instilled in him the values that would shape his destiny. She was a lioness guarding her cubs, her love fierce and unwavering. With a voice that could soothe a frightened child or rally a band of warriors, she taught Temujin the harsh lessons of the steppe. Before he could even toddle, she strapped him to the back of a sturdy pony, its rhythmic gait lulling him to sleep as they traversed the endless grasslands. As soon as he could grasp a bow, she placed it in his hands, guiding his aim until he could bring down a swift hare or a soaring eagle. She wove tales of their ancestors around the fire, their triumphs and tragedies echoing in the crackling flames, instilling in Temujin a deep respect for the traditions and the unyielding spirit of his people. Hoelun was more than a mother. She was a beacon of strength in a world where survival often hinged on a razor's edge. Her lessons, harsh but necessary, would forge Temujin into the man he was destined to become, a conqueror who would rise from the ashes of adversity to reshape the world in his own image. One crisp night, under a sky ablaze with stars, Hoelun gathered her children around a crackling campfire. The flames danced, casting flickering shadows on their faces as she began to weave a tale from the distant past, a legend that had been passed down through generations. "Long ago," she began, her voice a mesmerizing blend of warmth and strength, "there was a great king, a Khagan, who ruled all the Mongols. He was strong and wise, and everyone loved him." Her children leaned closer, their eyes wide with wonder. Temujin, even at his young age, felt a stirring in his heart, a yearning for the greatness his mother described. "Under the Khagan, our people were happy," Hoelun continued. "We had lots of food, our horses were strong, and no one dared to attack us. But then, bad people came, and the Khagan was killed. Everything fell apart." Hoelun's voice grew heavy with sorrow. "Now, the tribes fight each other. We're hungry, we're scared, and we have no one to protect us." She paused, her gaze sweeping across her children's faces. "But there's an old story, a prophecy. It says one day a new Khagan will come. He'll be strong like the first one, and he'll bring all the Mongols together again." Temujin's heart quickened. Could he be the one? Hoelun, sensing her son's awakening ambition, smiled gently. "Remember, my son," she said, her voice filled with a mother's love. "A true leader isn't just strong, he brings people together. That's how we'll be strong again." Her words, like embers carried on the wind, planted a seed in Temujin's young heart, a seed that would one day blossom into a relentless pursuit of power, a quest to fulfill the prophecy and forge a new destiny for the Mongol people. Temujin's early years were filled with the simple joys of nomadic life. He roamed the grasslands with his brothers and sisters, learning the ways of the steppe. But even in these tender years, the shadow of violence loomed large. Rival clans clashed in endless skirmishes, and blood feuds simmered beneath the surface. One fateful day, the tapestry of Temujin's childhood was torn asunder. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the grasslands as Temujin and his family eagerly awaited Yasuge's return from the hunt. But instead of the triumphant homecoming they anticipated, a chilling silence descended upon their camp. Finally, a lone rider appeared, his horse laboring under the weight of a limp figure slumped across its back. It was Yasuge, his face contorted in agony, his body racked with tremors. Temujin rushed forward, his young heart pounding with a mixture of dread and hope. As his father was gently lowered to the ground, Temujin's eyes widened in horror. Yasuge's once strong features were twisted in a grotesque mask of pain. His breath came in ragged gasps, each one a struggle against the insidious poison that coursed through his veins. Temujin knelt beside his father, his small hand reaching out to touch the fevered brow. Yasuge's eyes, once filled with warmth and laughter, now burned with an unfathomable torment. He tried to speak, but only a strangled whisper escaped his lips. Hoelun cradled her husband's head, tears streaming down her face. She murmured words of comfort, but they were powerless against the relentless grip of death. Temujin watched, helpless and heartbroken, as his father's life slowly slipped away. The night air grew heavy with the weight of grief. The campfire, once a source of warmth and camaraderie, now cast an eerie glow upon the scene. Temujin's young mind struggled to comprehend the cruelty that had been inflicted upon his family. As Yasuge breathed his last, a primal scream tore from Temujin's throat. It was a cry of anguish, of rage, of a childhood innocence shattered by the cold hand of death. In that moment, a seed of vengeance was planted deep within his soul, a seed that would grow and blossom into a relentless thirst for power and retribution. Yasuge was poisoned by a rival tribe, the Tatars. Temujin witnessed this horrific act at just 9 years old. With Yasuge's death, the clan fractured. Many abandoned Hoelun and her children, leaving them to fend for themselves in the unforgiving wilderness. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and the cold wind pierced their thin clothes. But Hoelun, ever resourceful, refused to succumb to despair. She taught her children to forage for berries, to fish in the icy rivers, and to snare small game. Through sheer grit and determination, they survived. As Temujin approached manhood, Hoelun sought to secure his future by honoring the betrothal his father had arranged years before. Temujin, at the age of 16, journeyed to the Olkunut tribe to claim his bride, Berthe. Their union was a beacon of hope in a time of darkness, a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of love amidst hardship. But their newfound happiness was short-lived. Shortly after their marriage, the Murkit tribe, seeking revenge for a past grievance, descended upon their camp. In the chaos of the raid, Berthe was captured and carried away, leaving Temujin devastated and filled with a burning rage. Refusing to accept a defeat, Temujin launched a daring rescue mission. He tracked the Murkits across the vast steppe, Temujin's determination fueled by his unwavering love for his wife. In a fierce battle, he overwhelmed the Murkits, rescuing Berthe and reclaiming their stolen honor. But still, Temujin's trials were far from over. One day, as the sun beat down on the arid steppe, Temujin was out searching for firewood. Lost in the rhythm of his task, he failed to notice the Tiachud horseman emerging from the hills. A lasso snaked out, wrapping around his neck and yanking him off his feet. Rough hands bound his wrists, gagging his cries. He was thrown across a horse, the world a blur of dust and despair. At the Tiachud camp, he was paraded like a trophy, their laughter echoing in his ears. Bound in a wooden kang, he endured public humiliation, The heavy contraption, designed to restrict movement and inflict discomfort, became a symbol of his subjugation. Children threw stones and taunted him, their laughter ringing in his ears like a cruel mockery. Adults spat at his feet, their faces contorted in disgust. One particularly cruel Tiachid warrior even used Temujin's kang as a makeshift hitching post, tethering his horse to it and forcing the young captive to stand for hours in the scorching sun, his thirst and shame a bitter cocktail. The sun blazed, flies tormented him, his heart ached for his family, their worry a gnawing presence. The humiliation burned deep. He vowed to escape, no matter the cost, and one day return to exact a brutal vengeance on this tribe. For years, Temujin endured the harsh realities of captivity. He was forced to perform menial tasks, subjected to beatings and ridicule. His spirit, however, remained unbroken. He observed the power dynamics of the tribe, the shifting alliances, and the simmering resentments. He recalled his father's words, the tale of the lone wolf, cunning, patient, and relentless in its pursuit. He understood then that survival on the steppe demanded more than brute strength. It required a keen mind and an iron will. He learned to mask his emotions, to bide his time, and to wait for the opportune moment to strike, just like the wolf waiting for its prey to falter. One night, as he lay beneath the vast expanse of the starlit sky, Temujin's thoughts drifted to his mother and siblings. He wondered if they were safe, if they had enough to eat, if they still held onto hope for his return. He imagined his mother, her face etched with worry, gazing up at the same stars, her heart yearning for her lost son. A pang of guilt pierced his chest, but it was quickly replaced by a steely resolve. He would escape, he would find them, and he would make them proud. The stars, silent witnesses to his vow, twinkled in response, as if offering a glimmer of hope in the darkness of his captivity. The fires of vengeance burned within him, fueled by the memory of his father's agonizing death and the humiliation of his captivity. But amidst the darkness, a new friendship began. He befriended a young boy from another captive tribe, Jamuka. Their bond, forged in shared adversity, would prove to be both a blessing and a curse in the years to come. The harshness of captivity deepened an already strong bond between Temujin and Jamuka. Though they had known each other before as children, it was in these desperate moments of shared hardship that their brotherhood solidified. They spoke quietly under the cover of night, sharing stories of home and dreams of a future free from the chains that bound them. They huddled together against the biting cold, their breath mingling in the frosty air. Temujin spoke of his father, Yasuge, a proud chieftain whose memory fueled his dreams of vengeance. Jamuka, in turn, shared tales of his own clan, their traditions, and their yearning for freedom. One day, Temujin declared, his voice a determined whisper, "I will return to my people. I will avenge my father's death and unite the Mongol tribes." Jamuka's eyes gleamed in the dim light. "And I will stand by your side, my brother," he vowed. "Together we will be unstoppable." One hot afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the desolate landscape, they knelt beneath the shade of a spreading Siberian elm tree, the vast Mongolian sky stretching above them. With a crude knife, they pricked their fingers, then clasped their hands, mingling the crimson drops that welled up, their blood intertwining as a symbol of their newfound bond. Their eyes met, a silent vow passing between them. They were now Anda, blood brothers, bound by an oath that transcended the fickle loyalties of the steppe. In that sacred moment, amidst the desolation of their captivity, a spark of hope ignited. Their bond, forged in the crucible of adversity, became a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness. They vowed to protect each other, to share their triumphs and tribulations, and to face the uncertain future together. In the unforgiving world of the steppe, where alliances shifted like the sands, their blood brotherhood was an unbreakable pact, a testament to the enduring power of human connection. Yet, even as they swore their eternal loyalty, the presence of a foreshadowing lingered. The steppe, a land of harsh beauty and brutal ambition, would test their bond in ways they could not yet imagine. The winds of fate were already stirring, carrying the seeds of both triumph and tragedy. As Temujin grew into adolescence, his captors began to recognize his strength and intelligence. The once scrawny boy had blossomed into a young man with a wiry build and a keen mind. He proved himself adept at tending horses, mending saddles, and even assisting in the crafting of weapons. Gradually, his captors' vigilance waned, their grip on him loosening. One moonlit night, as the camp slumbered beneath a blanket of stars, Temujin sensed an opportunity. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and the distant calls of night birds. He waited, his heart thrumming like a war drum, until the guards dozed off, their snores a discordant symphony in the stillness. With the stealth of a seasoned hunter, he eased the wooden kang from his neck, the rough wood scraping against his skin. He crept through the shadows, his bare feet barely disturbing the dew-kissed grass. Each rustle of leaves, each creak of leather sent a jolt of adrenaline through his veins. As he passed Jamuka's sleeping form, a pang of regret pierced his heart. He longed to wake his under, to offer him the same chance at freedom, but the risk was too great. Silently, he wished his blood brother luck, hoping that one day they would reunite under a different sky. Reaching the edge of the camp, he paused, his gaze scanning the moonlit landscape. The vast steppe stretched out before him, a silent invitation to freedom. With a final glance back at the sleeping camp, Temujin turned and ran, his lungs burning, his heart filled with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The night swallowed him whole, and he disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind the shackles of his captivity and the ghosts of his past. He ran and never looked back, his bare feet pounding the earth, each step a defiant echo in the stillness of the night. The stars, his celestial guides, twirled above him, their ancient light illuminating his path to freedom. The wind whispered secrets in his ears, carrying the scent of distant campfires and the promise of a new dawn. He was free, a bird released from its cage, a wolf unleashed upon the steppe. Panting heavily as he raced through the night, he reveled in his newfound liberty. Temujin knew that his journey had just begun. The boy who had been cast aside, the captive who had endured years of torment, was about to embark on a path that would lead him to the pinnacle of power, and his people to become one of the most powerful empires the world has ever known. The world would soon know him as Genghis Khan, the scourge of nations, the unifier of the Mongol tribes. But for now, he was simply Temujin, a boy running for his life from years of captivity, his heart ablaze with a burning desire for vengeance and a destiny that would shake the very foundations of the known world. Chapter 2: A Captive's Resilience. The vast Mongolian steppe, a sea of grass under a relentless sun, shimmered in the heat. Hoelun, her face etched with years of hardship, squinted into the distance, her heart heavy with a mother's enduring hope. Beside her, Temujin's siblings huddled in a familiar ritual, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of their long-lost brother. Days turned into years, but their vigil never wavered. Then, one afternoon, as the sun began its fiery descent, a lone figure emerged from the shimmering haze. A silhouette, tall and proud, slowly materialized against the backdrop of the endless plains. It was Temujin, no longer the boy they had lost, but a young man hardened by years of captivity. His once youthful features were now chiseled and resolute, his eyes burning with a fierce intensity. He rode towards them on a horse he had stolen during his escape, his silhouette growing larger with each stride of his horse. Hoelun's heart swelled with a mixture of joy and trepidation. Was this truly her son, returned to her at last? As he drew closer, recognition dawned. It was him, her Temujin, his spirit unbroken despite the trials he had endured. Tears welled up in Hoelun's eyes as she rushed forward, her arms outstretched. Her children followed, their faces alight with a mixture of disbelief and elation. Temujin dismounted, his movements fluid and powerful. He embraced his mother, his strong arms enveloping her frail frame. A chorus of greetings and sobs filled the air as he reunited with his siblings. Their bond, forged in adversity, was stronger than ever. In that moment, in the year 1186, amidst the vastness of the steppe, a family torn apart by cruelty and loss found solace in each other's arms. Temujin, now a hardened young man of 24, his heart heavy with the weight of his experiences, vowed to protect his loved ones, to shield them from the harsh realities of their world. He would become their protector, their provider, and their beacon of hope in a world that seemed determined to crush them. For Temujin, the reunion with his family was a balm to his wounded soul. The years of captivity had hardened him, but beneath the stoic exterior, a deep longing for his loved ones had lingered. Now, as he held his mother close, her familiar scent a comforting anchor in a world of chaos, a wave of relief washed over him. His siblings, once mere children, had grown into resilient young adults, their eyes mirroring the same determination that burned within him. In their faces, he saw not just family, but a tribe, a foundation upon which he could build his dreams of vengeance and power. Temujin's reputation as a survivor and a skilled warrior spread quickly. Young men, drawn to his charisma and the promise of a better future, flocked to his banner. Among them was his childhood friend, Jamuka, who had also escaped captivity. Their reunion was joyous, a testament to the enduring power of friendship. Together, Temujin and Jamuka led raids against rival clans, their tactics a blend of cunning and brutality. They stole horses, plundered livestock, and captured women, the spoils of war that fueled their growing power. Together they formed a formidable partnership, their combined skills and shared experiences making them a force to be reckoned with. Temujin's strategic mind and Jamuka's tactical brilliance complemented each other perfectly, leading to a series of daring raids and successful battles. They employed innovative tactics, using feigned retreats to lure their enemies into traps, coordinating surprise attacks under the cover of darkness, and exploiting the terrain to their advantage. Their creativity and adaptability on the battlefield quickly became legendary, earning them the respect and fear of rival clans. But beneath the camaraderie, a subtle rivalry began to brew. Jamuka, proud and ambitious, saw himself as Temujin's equal, a co-leader of their burgeoning alliance. One fateful day, as the spoils of a successful raid were laid out beneath the vast Mongolian sky, a dispute erupted. A prized stallion, its coat gleaming like polished obsidian, became the focal point of contention. Jamuka, his pride wounded, claimed the horse as his own, citing his leadership in the raid. Temujin, his jaw set in grim determination, argued that the spoils should be divided equally among all the warriors, as was their custom. Words turned to heated accusations, then to drawn swords and snarling threats. The once unbreakable bond between the blood brothers splintered under the weight of ambition and envy. In a flash, the simmering tension ignited into a full-blown conflict. Temujin and Jamuka, their faces contorted in rage, rallied their followers, their voices hoarse from shouting commands. The clash was a maelstrom of violence, a chaotic dance of steel and blood. Arrows whistled through the air, their sharp points finding their mark in flesh and bone. Swords clashed against shields, the metallic clang echoing across the battlefield. The ground trembled beneath the hooves of charging horses, their riders locked in desperate duels. The air grew thick with the stench of blood and the guttural cries of the dying. The once green steppe was transformed into a gruesome tapestry of fallen warriors, their lifeless bodies sprawled amidst the trampled grass. The sun, a silent observer to the carnage, cast a crimson hue upon the scene, painting a chilling portrait of brother against brother. In the end, Temujin emerged victorious, his forces decimated but his spirit unbroken. Jamuka, defeated and humiliated, fled into the wilderness, vowing revenge. The bonds of friendship, once so strong, were now irrevocably severed. Temujin's victory cemented his position as a rising power on the steppe. His followers, awed by his courage and strategic brilliance, pledged their unwavering loyalty. He rewarded their devotion with a share of the spoils and a sense of belonging to something greater than themselves. But Temujin's ambition extended beyond the immediate gains of raids and skirmishes. He possessed a vision that transcended the petty squabbles and blood feuds that had plagued the Mongol steppe for generations. He envisioned a united Mongolia, a land where the warring tribes would lay down their arms and live in harmony under one rule, his rule. The seeds of this vision had been sown in the fertile soil of his own suffering. The endless cycle of raids and blood feuds, the bitter taste of captivity, the constant threat of annihilation, these had shaped Temujin into a man who yearned for something more. He dreamed of a Mongolia where the winds carried not the cries of battle, but the laughter of children and the songs of a united people. A land where strength was found not in division, but in the unbreakable bonds of kinship and loyalty. The tales whispered around campfires of a time when the Mongols stood as one under the banner of a legendary Khagan resonated deep within his soul. He saw himself as the inheritor of this mantle, destined to fulfill the prophecies and lead his people to a new era of glory. His ambition, a fire stoked by the winds of vengeance and ancestral pride, burned with an intensity that could not be quenched. But Temujin was no naive dreamer. He understood that the path to unity was fraught with peril. The steppe was a realm of wolves, where only the strongest survived. To achieve his vision, he would need to conquer not just territory, but the hearts and minds of his people. And to do that, he would have to eliminate those who stood in his way, one by one. The path to peace, he knew, would be paved with blood and conquest. In the year 1202, Temujin, now a seasoned warrior of 40, finally had the strength to settle an old score. A lifetime of simmering rage, ignited by the memory of his father's poisoned agony, now blazed in his eyes. His first target was the Tatars, the tribe responsible for that heinous act decades earlier. He led a surprise attack on their camp, a storm of Mongol fury descending upon the unsuspecting settlement. The Tatars, caught unaware, were ill-prepared for the onslaught. Temujin's warriors, their blades honed and their hearts filled with a thirst for vengeance, swept through the camp like a scythe through tall grass. Men were cut down where they stood, their desperate pleas for mercy drowned out by the clash of steel and the guttural war cries of the Mongols. Women and children, once considered sacred, were not spared. Their screams mingled with the sickening crunch of bone and the gurgling gasps of the dying. The once peaceful camp transformed into a charnel house, the ground slick with blood. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim testament to the horrors unleashed. The rivers, once crystal clear, now ran red, carrying the lifeblood of a vanquished tribe. Even the wind seemed to whisper in horror as it swept across the desolate landscape, carrying the echoes of the massacre far and wide. Temujin, his face hardened by the grim spectacle, surveyed the carnage. A flicker of satisfaction crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a cold resolve. This was not just an act of revenge, it was a demonstration of his unyielding power, a chilling message to all who dared oppose him. The past would not be forgotten, and those who had wronged him would pay a terrible price. The Tatars had sown the seeds of their own destruction, and Temujin, the once helpless boy, had reaped a harvest of blood. Temujin surveyed the spoils of his victory. The Tatar camps yielded riches such as livestock, weapons, and countless prisoners. Among them were 2 Tatar princesses, Yasugen and Yasui, daughters of a powerful chieftain. Temujin, ever the pragmatist, saw an opportunity to further solidify his position. He took both women as his wives, binding their tribe to his through blood ties. It was a strategic move, a calculated display of dominance that sent ripples of fear and awe throughout the steppe. Next, he turned his attention to the Merkits, a powerful tribe that had once dared to violate his hearth and home by capturing his beloved wife, Berthe. A cold fury burned in Temujin's heart, a thirst for retribution that mirrored the arid landscape they traversed. He pursued them relentlessly, his Mongol horsemen, a relentless tide sweeping across the steppe, their arrows darkening the sky like a swarm of locusts. The Merkits, proud and fierce, fought back with desperate courage, but their spears and axes were no match for the Mongol recurve bows, their deadly accuracy honed through years of practice. The battlefield became a gruesome tableau of shattered bones and mangled flesh. Mongol warriors, their faces painted with the blood of their enemies, wielded their curved sabers with deadly precision, cleaving through the Merkit ranks like a hot knife through butter. In a final decisive battle, Temujin's forces encircled the remaining Merkit warriors, their escape routes cut off. The air throbbed with the rhythmic pounding of hooves and the clash of steel. The Merkits, outnumbered and outmaneuvered, fought with the desperation of cornered wolves. But their resistance was futile. One by one, they fell, their bodies littering the blood-soaked ground. The Merkit warriors were scattered, their pride shattered, their women and children left at the mercy of the victors. Among the captives was a young woman named Kulan, a princess of the Merkit tribe, known for her beauty and spirit. The Mongols, their victory complete, claimed their spoils of war, a grim reminder of the harsh realities of life on the steppe. Temujin, his vengeance sated, rode back to his camp, his heart still heavy with the weight of the bloodshed. But beside him rode Kulan as a new, additional wife, a symbol of his triumph and a testament to his growing power. With each victory, Temujin's power grew, his reputation as a fearsome conqueror spreading like wildfire. Rival chieftains, sensing the shifting tides, either pledged their allegiance or met their demise. The once fragmented Mongol tribes were slowly but surely coalescing under his banner. But Temujin's rise was not without its challenges. Betrayal and treachery lurked around every corner. Even his own blood relatives, envious of his success, plotted against him. His half-brother Bekta, a skilled archer and a charismatic leader, challenged Temujin's authority. In a tense standoff, Temujin confronted Bekta, their bows drawn and their eyes locked in a deadly duel. In a flash, an arrow pierced Bekta's chest, silencing his defiance forever. Temujin, his face etched with sorrow and resolve, had eliminated another threat to his power. The steppe, once teeming with rival clans, was slowly becoming his domain. As Temujin's influence grew, so too did his ambition. He dreamed of a Mongol empire that would stretch from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea, a realm where his will would be law. But to achieve this, he would need to unite the remaining tribes under his banner, a task that would require both cunning and ruthlessness. The stage was set for a final showdown, a clash that would determine the fate of the Mongol people. Temujin, the boy who had once been cast aside, was now on the cusp of achieving his destiny. The world would soon tremble before the might of Genghis Khan, the great Khan of the Mongols. But first he would have to face his most formidable rival yet, Jamuka, the blood brother turned bitter enemy who had rallied the remaining tribes opposed to Temujin's rule. The battle lines were drawn, and the steppe braced itself for a conflict that would echo through the ages. Chapter 3: The Rise of the Wolf. The windswept plains of Mongolia trembled beneath the thunder of thousands of hooves as Temujin's forces amassed, their colorful banners rippling like waves in the relentless breeze. A sea of horsemen stretched to the horizon, each warrior a master of the saddle, their lives intertwined with the spirit of their mounts. For the Mongols, horses were not mere beasts of burden, they were extensions of their own bodies, instruments of war, and symbols of their nomadic heritage. Each warrior possessed multiple mounts, allowing them to cover vast distances with astonishing speed and endurance. They could ride for days on end, changing horses as needed, their relentless pursuit a testament to their mastery of the steppe. At the head of this formidable force rode Temujin, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. Temujin's army was estimated to be as large as 30,000 warriors. The final showdown with Jamuka, his blood brother turned sworn enemy, was at hand. The fate of the Mongol people hung in the balance. Jamuka, consumed by envy and bitterness, had rallied the remaining tribes opposed to Temujin's rule. His army, though smaller, was no less fierce. Thousands of warriors, a patchwork of clans and allegiances, stood poised to challenge Temujin's ascendancy. They too were masters of the horse, their bows and arrows singing a deadly song across the vast expanse. The stakes were high. The victor would claim dominion over the entire steppe, shaping the destiny of a nation. The battle raged for days, a brutal maelstrom of clashing swords, whistling arrows, and the guttural cries of warriors locked in mortal combat. The earth trembled beneath the weight of charging horses, their hooves kicking up clouds of dust that obscured the sun. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smoke of burning arrows. Temujin, a master strategist, orchestrated the chaos with chilling precision. He employed the classic Mongol tactic of the feigned retreat. His horsemen seemingly fleeing in disarray, only to turn and counterattack with devastating force when Jamuka's forces gave chase. He used the terrain to his advantage, luring his enemy into narrow valleys and hidden ravines, where they were ambushed and slaughtered. Jamuka, though a skilled warrior, struggled to maintain cohesion among his disparate forces. His coalition, a patchwork of rival clans, lacked the unity and discipline of Temujin's army. They fought bravely, their arrows raining down upon the enemy, but their attacks were easily repelled. Temujin, sensing their disarray, pressed his advantage. He sent his most trusted commanders, men like Jebe and Subutai, to exploit gaps in the enemy lines, their swift cavalry charges wreaking havoc and sowing panic. The battlefield became a swirling vortex of confusion and carnage, the cries of the wounded and dying, a haunting symphony of despair. In the end, Jamukha's coalition, weakened by internal dissent and Temujin's superior tactics, crumbled. His warriors, once proud, scattered like leaves in a storm. Jamukha was captured but not immediately brought to Temujin. The bond of Unda still carried weight between them, and when they finally stood face to face, Temujin made a final offer of clemency. "Jamukha," Temujin said, his voice softened by memories of their shared past. "Join me again as my brother, and we can still build a future for our people." But Jamukha, filled with pride and bitterness, refused the offer and instead asked for an honorable death. Temujin's shoulders slumped, a flicker of sadness crossing his features. "Then so be it, my brother," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "May your ancestors welcome you in the afterlife." Temujin, bound by the ancient traditions of the steppe, granted Jamukha a death considered honorable among the Mongols, one that spared the shedding of his noble blood, a method reserved for nobles and blood relatives. Strong warriors seized Jamukha, their grip unyielding as they forced him to the ground, his face pressed against the cold earth. A hush fell over the gathered throng as a seasoned warrior stepped forward, his face impassive. With a swift and practiced motion, he placed his knee upon Jamukha's back, a sickening crack echoing through the silent air as his spine snapped. Jamukha's body convulsed, a final desperate gasp escaping his lips before stillness claimed him. The assembled Mongols watched the execution in hushed awe. Jamukha died quickly, his spirit passing with dignity as the bond of their Unda was severed one last time. The crowd stood in solemn silence, knowing that with Jamukha's death, an era of brotherhood and conflict had come to an end. Temujin, his gaze fixed upon the lifeless form of his former blood brother, felt a pang of sorrow mingled with a steely resolve. The death of Jamukha, a man he had once called friend, marked a turning point in his journey. It was a brutal demonstration of his unwavering commitment to unity, a stark reminder that even the strongest bonds could be severed in the pursuit of power. With Jamukha's demise, the last obstacle to Temujin's unification of the Mongol tribes was removed. He ordered the arrangement of a Kurultai, a grand assembly to proclaim him as Genghis Khan, meaning the universal ruler of the Mongols. The stage was set, the winds of change were blowing across the vast Mongolian grasslands, and Temujin prepared to step into his destiny, a destiny that would alter the course of human history. Chapter 4: The Unification of the Mongols. In 1206, at a grand assembly known as the Kurultai, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler of the Mongols. The title, bestowed upon him by his loyal followers, signified his absolute authority and the dawn of a new era. The Kurultai, held along the Onon River, brought together an unprecedented gathering of Mongol chieftains, leaders from allied clans and warriors, likely numbering over 2,000 key figures. The assembly represented the full spectrum of the Mongol tribes, and the combined forces under Genghis Khan's command had grown to over 100,000 warriors. This vast army, organized under his revolutionary military structure, was unmatched in discipline and mobility. The Grand Assembly echoed with the thunderous cheers of these warriors and the neighing of horses, their collective power felt in the air. Genghis Khan, clad in a richly embroidered silk deal, a long flowing robe secured with an ornate leather belt, stood atop a raised platform, his gaze sweeping across the sea of faces. The deal, dyed in vivid colors such as rich red symbolizing power, deep blue reflecting the eternal sky, and golden accents representing divine authority and prosperity, was adorned with intricate patterns that reflected the wealth and craftsmanship of the Mongol Empire. Atop his head, he wore a traditional fur-lined hat with a golden ornament, a mark of his elevated status as the supreme leader. The sheer size of the gathering, drawn from across the steppe, reflected the scale of the unification he had achieved. The air crackled with anticipation, a palpable sense of destiny hanging heavy in the air. With a voice that boomed across the windswept plains, Genghis Khan addressed the assembled masses and proclaimed his vision for a united Mongolia. "Hear me, my brothers and sisters. For too long we have been divided, our strength wasted in petty feuds and endless bloodshed. The time has come to cast aside our differences and unite under one banner." His words echoed across the vast expanse, carried by the wind to the farthest reaches of the gathering. The crowd, hushed in anticipation, leaned forward to catch every syllable. "Together," he continued, his voice rising with passion, "we will forge a new destiny for the Mongol people. No longer will we be prey to our enemies, scattered and weak. We will rise like a mighty eagle, our wings casting a shadow over the entire world." His words ignited a spark in the hearts of his followers. They saw in Genghis Khan a leader who embodied their deepest aspirations, a man who could lead them to greatness. A chorus of cheers erupted, a symphony of unity and hope that resonated across the steppe. They saw in him a leader who could deliver them from the endless cycle of raids and blood feuds, a man who could forge a new destiny for their people. They swore their allegiance, their voices blending in a chorus of loyalty and fervor. Genghis Khan's military system was based on a decimal structure, a groundbreaking approach that ensured efficiency, flexibility, and unwavering loyalty. The entire army was divided into units of 10, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. Each unit was led by a commander chosen for merit rather than lineage, fostering a sense of loyalty to Genghis Khan himself rather than to tribal affiliations. This system blurred traditional clan lines, uniting diverse groups into a single cohesive force. The Yasa, the Mongol code of law, became the bedrock of his rule. It was a harsh and unforgiving code, demanding absolute loyalty to the Khan and punishing any act of betrayal with death. Thieves had their hands chopped off, deserters were beheaded, and those who dared to challenge Genghis Khan's authority faced the most gruesome of fates, being broken on the wheel. This horrific punishment involved strapping the condemned to a large wooden wheel, their limbs splayed out like the spokes. A skilled executioner would then systematically shatter their bones with a heavy mallet, starting from the extremities and working inwards. The victim, fully conscious throughout the ordeal, would endure unimaginable agony, their screams a chilling testament to the Khan's absolute power. But the Yasa also fostered a sense of order and unity among the Mongols. It provided a framework for resolving disputes, regulating trade, and ensuring the smooth functioning of the growing empire. It was a testament to Genghis Khan's genius, a tool that transformed the collection of warring tribes into a cohesive and formidable nation. Under Genghis Khan's leadership, the Mongols embraced a new identity, one forged in the fires of conquest and tempered by an unyielding will to dominate. Their warriors, hardened by years of steppe warfare, were unmatched in their skill and ferocity. Their horses, bred for endurance and speed, could cover vast distances in a matter of days. And Genghis Khan possessed a strategic brilliance and a ruthless ambition that would soon send shockwaves across the known world. With the unification of the Mongol tribes complete, Genghis Khan cast his gaze beyond the borders of the Mongol steppe. He saw a world ripe for conquest, a tapestry of kingdoms and empires waiting to be unraveled by the Mongol hordes. The stage was set for a campaign of unprecedented scale, a storm of steel and blood that would leave an indelible mark on the course of history. The world would soon learn the true meaning of fear as Genghis Khan unleashed his fury upon it. Genghis Khan's first target was the Tangut Empire of Western Xia, a wealthy and powerful state that bordered Mongolia to the south. The Tanguts believed their fortified cities and vast armies made them invulnerable. Genghis Khan understood that brute force alone would not bring them to their knees. He led his warriors across the Gobi Desert, a grueling journey that tested their endurance, but his strategy did not rely solely on overwhelming numbers. It relied on fear. Before laying siege to Western Xia's key cities, Genghis Khan employed psychological warfare, allowing rumors of Mongol brutality to spread like wildfire among the Tangut population. He ordered his warriors to launch a series of sudden, terrifying raids on outlying villages, leaving devastation in their wake. These raids were not intended to capture territory, but to instill fear. Survivors were deliberately spared to carry stories of Mongol ferocity, sowing panic behind the walls of Western Xia's cities. The Tanguts, confident in their fortified cities and superior numbers, underestimated the Mongol threat. They paid dearly for their arrogance. Genghis Khan, a master of not only military strategy but also the subtle arts of psychological warfare, ensured the Tanguts' confidence was misplaced. He allowed rumors to circulate of a smaller Mongol force, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of the Tangut commanders. He orchestrated night raids on outlying settlements, leaving behind gruesome scenes of devastation designed to instill fear and erode morale. The constant threat of attack kept the Tangut forces on edge, their nerves frayed by the unseen enemy lurking in the shadows. When the full might of the Mongol army descended upon the Tangut cities, it was not just a storm of arrows and war cries. Genghis Khan used calculated strategies to weaken the cities long before his warriors breached their walls. He deployed his engineers, who had studied Chinese and Persian siege techniques, to construct advanced siege towers and catapults. These machines hurled not just stones and fire, but also the bodies of diseased animals, spreading sickness and chaos within the city walls. Genghis Khan's forces systematically cut off supply lines, starving the cities of food and resources. His warriors surrounded the Tangut strongholds, ensuring that no one could leave or enter. For weeks, the Tangut defenders watched helplessly as their people succumbed to hunger and illness. When the final assault came, many defenders were too weak or demoralized to put up significant resistance. Cities fell, their once proud walls reduced to rubble, their streets slick with the blood of the vanquished. The Mongols, their fury unleashed, showed no mercy. Men, women, and children were slaughtered indiscriminately, their screams a haunting chorus amidst the chaos. Those spared the sword faced a fate arguably worse: enslavement, their lives forfeit to the whims of their conquerors. The Tangut Emperor, his once mighty kingdom in ruins, was a broken man. Stripped of his finery, he was dragged before Genghis Khan, his head bowed in shame. The Mongol warlord, seated upon a throne of captured banners and weapons, surveyed his defeated foe with cold, calculating eyes. "You dared to defy me," Genghis Khan boomed, his voice echoing through the shattered halls of the Tangut Palace. "You dared to underestimate the might of the Mongols. Now you will pay the price." The fallen emperor, his voice trembling, pleaded for mercy. He offered tribute, vast riches, anything to appease the wrath of the conqueror. But Genghis Khan was unmoved. He demanded complete submission, the Tangut Empire to become a vassal state, its people subservient to the Mongol will. With a heavy heart and a shattered spirit, the emperor acquiesced. He knelt before Genghis Khan, his forehead touching the dust-covered floor. The Mongols, their victory complete, erupted in cheers, their voices a triumphant roar that echoed across the ravaged land. The Tangut Empire, once a proud and independent realm, was now a mere footnote in the ever-expanding saga of Mongol conquests. The conquest of Western Xia was just the beginning. Genghis Khan's gaze now turned towards the Jin dynasty of northern China, a vast and prosperous realm that beckoned with its riches and fertile lands. The Mongols, their appetite for conquest whetted, prepared to unleash their fury upon the unsuspecting Chinese. But as Genghis Khan's armies massed on the border, a new challenge emerged. The Khwarezmian Empire, a powerful Islamic state that spanned Central Asia, represented a formidable obstacle. Its ruler, Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, a proud and arrogant man, refused to acknowledge Genghis Khan's authority, seeing the Mongols as little more than barbarians from the steppe. The stage was set for a clash of titans, a confrontation that would determine the fate of empires. Genghis Khan, the master strategist, prepared to pit his Mongol hordes against the might of the Khwarezmian Empire. The world held its breath as the two juggernauts prepared to collide, their destinies intertwined in a dance of blood and conquest. Chapter 5: The Emergence of Genghis Khan. The Khwarezmian Empire, a sprawling realm of bustling cities and ancient trade routes, stood as a formidable obstacle to Genghis Khan's eastward expansion. Shah Muhammad, the arrogant and short-sighted ruler, dismissed the Mongol threat, confident in his vast armies and fortified cities. He underestimated the storm that was brewing on the horizon. Genghis Khan, ever the shrewd strategist, dispatched envoys to the Khwarezmian court, seeking peaceful trade relations. But the Shah, blinded by pride, saw only weakness in the Mongol overtures. He had the envoys executed, their severed heads sent back to Genghis Khan as a gruesome declaration of war. This clash of titans lasted from 1219 to 1221, and the Mongol response was swift and merciless. Genghis Khan unleashed his hordes upon the Khwarezmian Empire, a tide of 50,000 to 200,000 estimated horsemen, depending on the battle, that swept across the land like a raging inferno. The Khwarezmian forces, though they could muster between 300,000 and 400,000 soldiers, were scattered across their vast empire, and could not coordinate in time to withstand the precision of the Mongol attacks. The Mongols, known for their unparalleled speed and discipline, tore through the Khwarezmian defenses, using superior tactics to overwhelm the numerically superior but disorganized Khwarezmian forces. Cities fell, their defenses crumbled before the Mongol onslaught. The once proud Khwarezmian army, which outnumbered the Mongols on paper, was ill-prepared for their tactics and was routed in a series of devastating battles, including the brutal siege of Bukhara. By the time of the Khwarezmian campaign, Genghis Khan's military had evolved into a formidable and sophisticated force, drawing on the talents and tactics of many different cultures. His army was no longer purely Mongol, it was a multi-ethnic coalition of warriors and engineers from across his growing empire. He had incorporated Chinese engineers skilled in the construction of siege machines, Persian artisans with deep knowledge of urban warfare, and Mongol horsemen who remained unmatched in their mobility and precision. The Mongols' mastery of siege warfare was now a blend of these diverse influences. Chinese and Persian engineers built massive trebuchets, capable of flinging not just stones, but barrels of fire, flaming oil, and the bodies of diseased animals over city walls. They devised complex methods to undermine city fortifications, while Mongol horsemen ensured no supply lines could break through the Mongol blockade. Genghis Khan's army even diverted rivers, flooding Khwarezmian cities and forcing defenders to retreat deeper into their fortresses. The Mongol war machine was a convergence of the most advanced techniques from the east and the west, applied with terrifying precision. No city, no matter how well fortified, could withstand the relentless siege. The sack of the Khwarezmian cities was a spectacle of unimaginable horror. Men, women, and children were slaughtered indiscriminately, their screams drowned out by the clash of steel and the roar of flames. The streets ran red with blood, and the air was thick with the stench of death. The once vibrant cities were reduced to smoldering ruins, monuments to the Mongols' thirst for conquest. Shah Muhammad, his mighty empire crumbling around him, fled like a hunted animal. He sought refuge on a remote island in the Caspian Sea, where he died a broken and humiliated man. His once mighty empire, shattered by the Mongol onslaught, lay in ruins. The conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire marked a turning point in Genghis Khan's reign, not only in scale, but in the sophistication of his military operations. His campaigns in Central Asia showcased his revolutionary ability to integrate warfare tactics from various cultures. Genghis Khan's military was now a fusion of the best techniques the world had to offer, making him not just a fearsome conqueror, but an innovator in the art of war. But Genghis Khan's ambitions extended beyond mere conquest. He sought to create a lasting lineage and an empire that would endure for generations. His numerous wives and concubines, drawn from the conquered territories and the noble families of the steppe, bore him a multitude of children. His sons, raised in the harsh traditions of the Mongols, would become formidable warriors and leaders in their own right, carrying his legacy forward and expanding the Mongol dominion even further. In Genghis Khan's mind, there were no limits to his conquest. He saw a world ripe for the taking, his armies capable of reaching the furthest corners of the world, their hooves thundering across uncharted lands. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. News arrived like a dagger to the heart. Hoelun, the woman who had shaped him, the beacon who had guided him through the darkest storms, was gone. She had passed peacefully in her sleep, her spirit finally succumbing to the weight of years and the harshness of the steppe. The news struck Genghis Khan like a thunderclap. He was amidst a fierce campaign against the Naimans, their warriors scattering before the Mongol onslaught. But upon hearing of his mother's passing, he halted his advance, the fires of conquest momentarily extinguished by the cold grip of grief. He retreated to his gur, a traditional Mongolian dwelling. The silence a stark contrast to the clamor of battle. The wind howled outside, a mournful echo of his own sorrow. Memories flooded his mind, his mother's gentle touch, her fierce spirit, the countless lessons she had imparted. He had conquered kingdoms, amassed armies, and bent the will of nations. Yet, in this moment, he felt the profound vulnerability of a son who had lost his guiding star. Tears, a rare sight for the hardened Khan, welled up in his eyes. He mourned not just the loss of his mother, but the passing of an era. Hoelun had been the bridge to his past, a living embodiment of the values and traditions that had shaped him. With her gone, he felt adrift, the weight of his newfound power a heavy burden on his shoulders. But even in his grief, Genghis Khan found a renewed sense of purpose. He would honor his mother's memory by fulfilling her dreams, by uniting the Mongol tribes and creating a legacy that would endure for generations. The fire of his ambition, now tinged with a bittersweet sorrow, burned brighter than ever. With a heavy heart, he emerged from his gur, his resolve steeled. The campaign would continue, the Naimans would fall, and the Mongol Empire would rise. Hoelun's spirit, he believed, would ride with him, her wisdom guiding his every decision. And as he led his armies back into battle, a silent vow echoed in his heart. He would not rest until he had forged a world worthy of his mother's memory, a world where the Mongols would reign supreme. He knew that to solidify his empire, to ensure its longevity and protect its heartland, he needed to secure his northern flank, to eliminate any potential threats from the nomadic tribes that roamed the steppes beyond Mongolia's borders. And so his gaze turned northwards, towards the vast and unforgiving wilderness of Siberia. There, amidst the frozen tundra and dense forests, lived the Karayids, a powerful tribe that had once been allied with Genghis Khan. But their leader, Togrul, had grown jealous of the Mongols' success, his loyalty wavering in the face of Mongol dominance. The stage was set for a final confrontation between two old allies turned rivals. Genghis Khan, his armies hardened by years of relentless campaigning, prepared to march into the heart of Siberia. The Karayids, their backs against the wall, braced themselves for the inevitable onslaught. The frozen wastes would soon become a battleground, the snow stained red with the blood of warriors. And, as the Mongol hordes ventured into the unknown, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The conquest of the Karayids would be a brutal affair, the next domino to fall in a chain reaction that would send shockwaves across the vast expanse of Eurasia, toppling tribes and empires in its wake. But it would also mark the beginning of a new chapter in Genghis Khan's reign, one that would see him push the boundaries of his dominion to their very limits. The boy, Temujin, who had once been cast aside, the captive who had endured years of torment, was now a force of nature, poised to unleash his fury upon the world. And the world, already trembling before the Mongol onslaught, would soon witness the full extent of Genghis Khan's insatiable thirst for power. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of Fireside Villainies, Genghis Khan Part 1, From Outcast to Overlord. If you liked this episode of Fireside Villainies, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with new episodes. And you can help bring more stories like this to life by becoming a member. Members get access to exclusive content, early releases, and more. Check out the video description for more details. And so, we conclude this first part in the chilling saga of Genghis Khan. We've witnessed his transformation from a vulnerable boy, scarred by tragedy and hardened by captivity, into a ruthless leader, poised to conquer the world. His journey, marked by brilliance and brutality, serves as a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature. Temujin's unwavering ambition, his strategic genius, and his ability to unite disparate tribes under a common banner are undeniably impressive. Yet his methods, steeped in bloodshed and terror, leave a dark stain on his legacy. The Mongol conquests, fueled by Genghis Khan's insatiable thirst for power, reshaped the world, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. Cities were razed, populations decimated, and entire cultures erased. The rivers ran red with the blood of the vanquished, a chilling testament to the human cost of his ambition. But amidst the darkness, there are lessons to be learned. Genghis Khan's story reminds us of the fragility of peace, the dangers of unchecked power, and the enduring human capacity for both cruelty and resilience. It challenges us to grapple with the complexities of historical figures, to acknowledge their achievements while also confronting the darkness that often accompanies them. In the next chapter of our Fireside Villainies series, we will delve deeper into the Mongol conquests, exploring the full extent of their brutality and the lasting impact they had on the world. We will witness the rise and fall of empires, the clash of civilizations, and the enduring legacy of a man whose name still evokes both awe and terror centuries later. Thank you for joining me through this brutal chapter of history. I hope this exploration of Genghis Khan's life and villainy has been immersive and thought-provoking. If you're interested in exploring the lighter side of history, the lives of inspirational and remarkable people who have shaped our world, you might like to check out our sister channel, Fireside Legacies. There's a link in the video description. Stay tuned to Fireside Villainies for more gruesome stories from history. Until next time, tread carefully in history's shadows.